Hey,
Trustee Anderson, can you hear us?
I sure can. How about, am I
Perfect.
coming back?
Let's see, what happened? There.
Hi, Hank.
How you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Real good, Bob, real good.
Hey, Dan.
Good evening.
I can. Jody, is Dan chairing tonight? Perfect. I thought so. I just didn't see anybody. Wasn't sure. There he is. Oh. Okay.
About 2.5 minutes, we'll get going. Is everybody in the room, all the board members? Seven o'clock, everybody ready to go? my gavel. Call to order the regular board meeting of February 23rd, 2021 at 7 p.m. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
To the flag
of the
of
United
the United
States
States of
of
America,
America,
and
to the republic
for which
for
it
which it
stands,
stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty,
liberty and
justice
justice for
for
all.
all.
Secretary, please call the roll.
Supervisor Acciavatti,
Here.
Treasurer Elliott,
Here in my office at the Township Municipal Building.
and Supervisor Acciavatti, can you tell us where you are remoting in from?
Office at the Township Municipal Building.
Thank you. Trustee Vosberg,
I'm here from my home office in Chesterfield.
Trustee Joseph,
Present from Chesterfield.
Trustee Anderson,
President at my dwelling in Chesterfield.
and Trustee Demink.
Present from my home in Chesterfield. Also, you're getting some reverbs from someone in there.
Yep, I'm hearing the reverbs as well.
I think it's-
And Clerk Barry is present from my home in Chesterfield Township.
Item 5 is presentations. There are no presentations tonight. Item 6, department reports. Are there any department reports, or maybe we'll start with the board? Trustee Demink.
Yes, sir, Mr. Supervisor. I have one from Leisure Services. From Leisure Services Department, we are now hiring. We are currently recruiting highly qualified employees to fill our summer playgrounds and park positions. Applications will be accepted through March 19th, $10.25 to $16 per hour. Employment is available for those as young as 16 years of age with a work permit and reliable transportation. If you are dependable, dedicated, and available to work each day during the summer, we encourage you to apply. Employees in these positions work 20 to 35 hours per week. Resumes are accepted at chesterfieldtownship.org or contact the Leisure Services Department, 949-0400 extension 4 for further information. Thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
Any further board updates? Trustee Joseph.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I have two reports. The first is our report comes from my liaison work with the Chesterfield Township Library Board. Wanted to make the board aware that at the February 17th Library Board meeting, there was a motion put forward and it received unanimous approval for a millage. The Library Board is planning to bring to the clerk a request for a millage with the August primary. I don't
You can
think
hear
our
you.
admin has their mic open. At any rate, the Township Library Board is moving forward with a millage. They had considerable debate about the proposed dates, and they are looking currently at the 8/3/21 millage. I believe they will, of course, come forward and perhaps even present our board with a full presentation on what it is that they intend to ask in terms of language. Tentatively, it looks like a request for a full mill increase. Currently, the library board millage, the library millage is roughly 2/3 of a mill. 0.67 mills, I believe, is what is being collected now. They propose taking that to 1.67 mills with an anticipated sunset of 20 years. The proposed millage is in preparation for the construction of a new library, as well as the overhead and the cost associated with running the library. They have a very detailed financial package that outlines exactly what, why, and what they hope to do, including, as the board recall, a presentation with the sort of the blueprint for the proposed new library. Additionally, on a less, I guess, impacting, the board also approved the use of materials by mail. Patrons who reside in the township will be able to check library materials out by mail and return them by mail. They will come to the patron with a return postage, and the ability to access library materials via the mail is a new program, and the effective date of that will be on March 1st. So a lot going on in our library, and happy to report back to you that they have finally decided to move forward with that millage request. The other department report or liaison report that I would like to bring the board up to speed on is something that I think many of you may already be aware of, but obviously the citizens should be proud of their Chesterfield Public Safety Department, specifically this time for a massive undertaking involving the accreditation process of the police department. The public safety director has put in place the accreditation process, which is a rigorous accreditation process. The process began over 2 years ago, and it is overseen by the Michigan Law Enforcement Accreditation Commission. The first sort of point of contact was made back in December of 2018 when Director Kirsten applied for accreditation. Captain McNair has been named the accreditation manager, and the process is quite daunting. It requires the department to look at over 100 different policies that are reviewed by MLEAC, that again is the Michigan Law Enforcement Accreditation Commission, over 108 standards that deal with everything from use of force to pursuit to you name it. The policies and procedures that are required with this accreditation process are really quite astounding. In addition to the 108 standards, there are 506 substandards, making this accreditation process very difficult to navigate, and very few departments in our area are recognized as a fully accredited department. From a taxpayer and from a resident standpoint, it is very impressive to receive this accreditation, primarily because what you're now dealing with is an outside review that requires the township to be in compliance with federal standards involving use of force, hiring practices, pursuits. So what that looks like to the average taxpayer is when the township, if the township, God forbid, is ever involved in any of the things that we've seen taking place nationally, from a liability standpoint, we are just seen from the onset as being a department that is fully committed to the appropriate best practices known in the law enforcement community. It has required the participation of not only the command structure in the police department, but also sergeants and our patrol officers. Everyone is really pitched in, and the accreditation process is going extremely well. Trustee Anderson and I, along with Treasurer Elliott and Supervisor Acciavatti, met with two distinguished assessors that were in the township this morning, taking testimony and interviews with not only elected officials, but personnel in the department. They will be here again tomorrow, talking with residents and just getting a full on-site evidence of how our township is complying with these 108 standards. The process will take place with in-person assessments from the accreditation department, full day today, full day tomorrow. The notice of the township, the public safety department's accreditation will come, I understand, in June. when the governing body meets. They meet several times a year, and the next session will be, I believe, in June. And at that time, we expect a formal presentation. At that time, I believe Director Kirsten and probably his administrative team involving Captain McNair and perhaps Franks will come before the board. And I fully expect that we will see. I don't know. I don't know what the prize is. So certainly some plaques and some recognition, assuming that it goes the way we anticipated going. Not too far behind him is Chief Craig, who is also Chief Miller, who is also working with the MLEAC equivalent in the fire profession, and he is looking to begin an accreditation process shortly after this. So, by all accounts, our public safety dollars are probably the best spent monies that we have in the township, and the early feedback from the assessors is just incredibly positive. And I'm very proud of our department and the direction that Director Kirsten has taken us along with Captain McNair and Franks. Just an outstanding department, and I believe they will receive full accreditation at the end of this exhausting process. So great news from the Public Safety Department. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further department reports? Clerk Berry.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I would just like to give an update with regards to passports in the clerk's office. To begin with, we will be having our next passport late night this Thursday, February 25th. That will be from 4:30 to 7:30 p.m. Again, those late night passport offerings is something that the clerk's department began to do about 5 years ago to accommodate those individuals who are unable to come to the township offices during regular business hours. Oftentimes families find that difficult, and so we have extended that service to them for that purpose. You may register in advance online on our website for that event. If you do register in advance, it will guarantee you a spot so that you don't have to worry about getting in line and us not getting to you in time. If you pre-register, you will guarantee your spot on Thursday for the passport late night. The next opportunity you have to do that will be March the 18th. So those are the two passport late nights. I encourage people to take advantage of those because the next one is not until September. So there will be no additional late night passport offerings between March and September. So if you will be traveling and you need passport assistance, or you need additional new passports or something in that order, you're going to want to take advantage of that if you have a problem getting to us during business hours. Another update to note is an important notice to all passport accepting agencies and to all of those traveling from the U.S. Department of State. And I'd like to read that very briefly. COVID-19 travel advisory. The State Department encourages U.S. citizens and lawful permanent residents to avoid non-essential travel at this time. COVID-19 testing required for all passengers boarding flights bound for the United States. So you may be able to get out of the country, but if you need to get back in, there will be COVID-19 testing required. On January 26th, 2021, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention announced that all air passengers arriving to the U.S. from a foreign country must present a negative COVID-19 test taken within 3 days of departure, or proof of recovery to the airline prior to boarding the flight. If you must travel, have a plan in case you test positive for COVID-19. And be ready to pay additional hotel costs and change fees. Consider purchasing medical travel insurance that includes pandemic coverage. Your trip may be severely disrupted. You may unexpectedly test positive for COVID-19. It may be hard to find a test that returns results within 3 days. There may be mandatory quarantines, travel restrictions, and closed borders. For more information regarding overseas testing, you can go to the State Department at travel.state.gov/C19 testing overseas. For testing requirements, you can go to the cdc.gov/COVID-19 travel. And you can also follow on @TravelGov on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You may also enroll in the Smart Traveler Enrollment Program, step.state.gov, to receive alerts from the nearest U.S. Embassy or consulate. A principal travel advisory containing this information is also included with our notification. It will be available as well on our website so that you may access everything that I have shared with you here. Thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
Any further department reports?
Public safety has a real quick one, if I'm not interrupting anyone.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Brad.
Just a piece of information, public safety, the fire department, the two reserve fire apparatus that we had for sale, we did sell one here last week. We have one still with our broker for sale. We got pretty close to what we were asking for. And it was sold to a fire department in Pennsylvania. And that's it.
Thank you. Any further public or any further board updates or department reports? Seeing no further department reports, moving on to item 7, the consent agenda. Clerk Berry.
All items under the consent agenda are considered routine by the board and will be enacted in one motion. There is no separate discussion of these items. If discussion of any item is required by a board member, it will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. Public comments on the consent agenda items are permitted. 7A, approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting of February 9th, 2021. 7B, approval of the agenda with addendum if necessary. Item 7C, approval of the payment of bills as submitted by the Finance Department.
Do I have a motion?
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Motion by Clerk Berry. Is there support?
Support.
Support by, is that Trustee Demink?
Demink.
Support by Trustee Demink. Discussion. One quick one from me. We do expect an action item to come out of closed session, just for your information. Any further discussion on the consent agenda? And Clerk Berry, has there been any public comments submitted on the consent agenda?
There have been no public comments submitted on the consent agenda.
Any further discussion? Trustee Joseph.
Yep. Sorry, Mr. Supervisor. I appreciate you giving the reminder of the potential for action coming out. And as we have in the past, if we could then move public and board comments to
After item number 2.
Thank you. Yes, you know where I was going with that. And appreciate the reminder. If we could do that, just in case there is any comments that residents may have about the action item. So if the motion maker would consider and I guess an addendum or a change in the agenda to just move those 2 items past closed session, I would appreciate that very much.
That's fine.
We have a
Continued
I'll amend
support.
my motion.
revised motion and continued support to approve the consent agenda as submitted, with the exception of moving public comments and board comments to after item 12, which is the closed session. Clerk Berry, please call the roll.
Clerk Berry, aye. Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Sorry, aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Acciavatti.
Aye. The consent agenda is adopted. Item 8, the regular agenda, item 8A.
Item 8A is a recommendation from the CDBG Committee to apply for the 2021 Community Development Block Grant funding in the amount of $92,730, and if awarded the grant, to allocate $15,250 of township funds towards the project for a total project amount of $107,980.
Move to approve Vosberg.
Motion by trustee Vosberg,
Second,
support by clerk Barry. Discussion. And Director John, or Director Sonnenberg is here.
Yes, good evening. Thank you. This is just the second phase of, if you recall, back in July 2020, we applied for the first phase of this grant. It was it's actually two separate grants, but we broke it up into phasing to get as much funding as we could because the grants were limited to $150,000. So the first year, back in July, we applied for $149,000 and we got that. And the bid documents are currently being prepared. This would be the second phase. This would cover the pavilion area for the seniors to provide some shade. The first phase was basically all the concrete, foundation work, fencing, and landscaping. So obviously this wouldn't come into play if we weren't to receive the grant from CBDG, then this request would go away. We wouldn't spend any money on this, but we're hopeful that we get it.
Any comments from the board? Any comments from the public?
yes, Mr. Supervisor, we have received one comment via the online portal.
Will you please read that comment?
This comment is from Paul LaFotta, 48055 Mallard Drive. Community Development Block Grant. Supervisor Acciavatti should listen to the voice of Chesterfield seniors. Chesterfield seniors have repeatedly gone in front of the past township boards to request a senior gym. Dedicated to building a senior gym, they of their own recognizance started a fund to build a new senior gym. Funds are currently held in trust by the township. Failure to maintain the senior center grounds. Seniors love to play cards and they come every week. They came every week with their bags and jars full of coins. The men would take a break and go outside to smoke and would always stand or sit on the brick wall or the flower beds in front of the building. There were two benches, one at the front and back entrances to the offices adjacent to the senior center, along with a wooden picnic table. I asked, why are you guys standing? They pointed out how dirty and nasty the benches and picnic tables were. I asked to have the benches and table be cleaned or replaced 2 weeks past. I mentioned this issue to Supervisor Acciavatti. His response, we should have a volunteer program like Algonac where residents donate and maintain the benches. I assumed the responsibility of trying to keep the benches clean. There was a monkey business survey asking seniors what they would like to have. The result was pickleball courts, taking time for conversation when the senior men my age were outside taking a smoke break on card days. I asked who plays pickleball. Answer, none. It would be great to have a pavilion outside with some shade in the summertime. We hate the cold air conditioning. I took the time to talk to some of the senior women. I asked one about wanting pickleball courts. Her answer, the pictures looked really nice. I asked, do you play pickleball? Oh no, but the pictures looked really nice. The request for a pavilion should have been a priority to fund. ADA compliant, the pavilion can be utilized by all seniors. Pickleball courts will be another pieced together project promoted with colorful picturesque renderings that will not resemble the project's end product. Thinking ahead to the future of those seniors that have survived COVID-19, have the project engineers taken into consideration the location of this agenda item, the real estate needed, and the compatibility to build a senior gym connected to the senior center. Weeks have passed, still no activity to help seniors to procure vaccination appointments.
Thank you. Any further public comment?
There are no further public comments on this agenda item.
Any further board discussion? Motion by trustee Vosberg, support by clerk Barry to approve item 8A as submitted. Clerk Barry, please call the roll.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Clerk Barry, aye. Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Acciavatti.
Aye. Motion passes. Item 8B.
Item 8B is to approve a request to approve Resolution 2021-06, absent voter counting board stipend.
Do I have a motion?
I will move to approve resolution and adopt Resolution 2021-06.
Motion by Clerk Barry,
Support.
support by Trustee Vosberg. Discussion. Or Clerk Barry, I guess.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. This item was something that had been discussed by the Election Commission and with myself, Trustee Vosberg and Trustee Anderson being the members of the Election Commission, joined by Election Coordinator Gomez, who had brought this to our attention as an issue with regards to what she learned from the 2020 election and trying to address some disparities. So I know that Coordinator Gomez is on the Zoom call with us this evening, and I or she would be happy to answer any additional questions that members may have.
Questions from the board? Comments from the public?
Yes, Mr. Supervisor, we have received one public comment on this item.
Will you please read the public comment?
This item is from Paul LaFontaine, 48055 Mallard Drive. In addition to the stipends, does Clerk Barry and the Election Committee intend to continue the purchase of food for election employees? The purchase of food for employees has been opined by Township Legal Counsel that the purchase of food for election employees is in violation of the state and of Chesterfield's purchasing policy. Is this continued practice ethical? Election Committee members Trustee Vosberg and Clerk Barry are co-authors of Chesterfield's ethics policy. Thank you.
Any further public comments?
There are no further public comments on this agenda item.
Any further discussion from the board? Seeing no further discussion, we have a motion by Clerk Barry, support by Trustee Vosberg to approve item 8B as submitted. Clerk Barry, please call the roll.
Clerk Barry, aye. Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee DeMink.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Acciavatti.
Aye. Motion passes. Item 8C.
Item 8C is to approve a recommendation by the Elections Department and Elections Commission to purchase an additional DS 450 high-speed tabulator for the absent voter counting board.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Trustee Anderson,
Second.
support by Clerk Barry. Discussion.
Mr. Supervisor, again, this was an item that was brought to our attention as a needed additional piece of equipment after what we experienced and learned from our 2020 November 2020 general election. This was brought to us by, again, Election Coordinator Gomez, and we believe that what we found was when we canvassed other communities, we found that those that were similarly situated to ourselves had multiple high-speed counters in their absentee counting boards. Chesterfield only had one. Now, they are quite expensive, but we believe that this will significantly expedite and help facilitate a more efficient running of our absentee counting board in future elections.
Thank you. Any further discussion from the board? Any public comments submitted, Clerk Barry?
There are no public comments submitted on this agenda item.
I'd like to thank the clerk's office and especially Director Gomez for just her expertise on these elections. Clearly, we got a top-notch operation, and Mary's a big part of that, so thank you. Motion by Trustee Anderson, support by Clerk Barry to approve item 8C as submitted. Clerk Barry, please call the roll.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Clerk Barry, aye. Trustee DeMink.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Acciavatti.
Aye. Motion passes. Item 8D.
Thank you, Board. Item 8D is a recommendation to approve Administrative Procedure Order number 15-2021 and adopt Resolution number 2021-08, Investment and Depository Designation Policy.
Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion by trustee Vosberg. Is there support?
Support.
Support by clerk Barry. Discussion, Treasurer Elliott. How are you?
Thank you. This policy has been reviewed by the attorney. It expands on the explanation of the investment objectives. Safety is to protect the principal, liquidity to meet obligations, diversification by maturity and financial institution, return on investment to obtain a rate that is appropriate for the existent budget and economic cycles. It is also addresses delegation of authority, which was aligned with state statute. The previous investment policy did not name the treasurer or deputy treasurer. However, this is a statutory duty of the treasurer. The new policy will name the treasurer, who then may delegate the activities to subordinate officials. And it also informs an investment committee that will meet at least annually. The authorized security language has been aligned with state statute and was co-written by the treasurer and attorney Siebert. The comprehensive reporting will be given to the board annually, cooperatively with the treasurer, the finance director, and the assessor. It will include a revenue and expense report, cash flow analysis, debt repayment schedule, 10-year tax collection comparison, bank and investment report, and an approved financial institution list. The financial institution list has now been updated. It has removed Telmer and the private bank, Ambassador Capital Management. It has added TCF Bank, Citizens Bank, Michigan Schools and Government Credit Union, and Michigan Class, which is a local government investment pool. Glossary has been updated to the FDIC insurance, previously referenced to $100,000, which has not been that way for years, has now been removed.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Trustee Joseph.
Yeah, I'm just, there's a lot of information here. It sounds like we've been doing it horribly wrong for forever. Were none of these safeguards in place previous to this APO? And are we changing any investment groups? Are we moving any funds from one institution to another?
So I don't know that we were doing it horribly wrong. This is just more updated. The way that it was done, it hasn't been looked at in 10 years. I didn't find it on any of the agendas since then. So the funds are moved as necessary, depending on where the rate of return is. That is kind of a regular thing that is done, but nothing is outside of state statute and or any major changes. We had things like Talmer Bank, which has gone out of business years ago, was bought up, and we've removed them. So it's just things that needed to be updated. So, and then in looking at some of the other municipalities and what they have offered, kind of added some additional language for clarity purposes. So we always referred to things like safety and liquidity, but we didn't, the original policy didn't have the definition after it. It just kind of referred to those things. So I thought that it was nice that we were able, bringing from GFOA and MTA, some of the language in that they did that, and I thought brought a little bit more clarity and understanding.
When you talk about, just a quick follow-up, when you talk about rate of return and moving things based on rate of return, who makes that assessment?
Well, currently it is made by the investment coordinator, and that's who has been named in the policy before. And I don't know if anybody knows who the investment coordinator is. So what it will be at this point is in line with statute, which says that that is a duty of the treasurer. And the current this investment policy will also add another layer by having a committee, which includes the investment coordinator, the deputy treasurer, the finance director, and a trustee. So it'd be the treasurer and at least 3 of those folks.
As I read it, the investment committee, if you will, is an advisory committee, but that the investment coordinator, in essence, will be you. Or in this case, you, but it will be the treasurer,
No,
according to this APO.
no, the investment coordinator is actually a position currently filled in the treasurer's department, but not by the treasurer. The investment officer is the treasurer.
And that is the language that you're clarifying in this proposed APO, is that you will be, you being the treasurer's office will be the investment officer.
The investment officer, correct. And so you're clarifying what the difference is between the investment officer, which is in line with state statute. The investment coordinator is a different position in the treasurer's office. That is an in-union position. So the elected body elects the treasurer under the state statute to do this, and this is part of one of their statutory duties. And the previous policy was out of line, and it may have been because that was 10 years ago, and that may have made sense 10 years ago. But you can, and I'd have to ask Attorney Siebert if that about that history, and he's on the call, so if he'd like to clarify.
You know, Treasurer Elliott sent over to me a draft of the new policy. I reviewed it. She and I had several discussions about it. There was nothing wrong with your former policy, but as Treasurer Elliott indicates, certain banks now have changed their name. Talmer Bank is no longer Talmer Bank, and so forth. So there were some cleanup items to be done. I represent a number of municipalities. All of their investment policies are somewhat different, but at the end of the day, they all have to meet the requirements of the state law. Your investment policies are looked at annually when Plant Moran is in to look at your audit, to perform your audit. And so they look at the policies as well. They have all been fine. I think in this particular policy, Treasurer Elliott has laid out some more specificity in certain areas. Not to say there was anything wrong with the prior policy. When we talked about it, some communities will simply say that you can invest your money in areas that the Surplus Funds Act allows you to invest them, and that's fine. What we have done here is what the treasurer's done here is we have simply laid out exactly what the statute requires, so the investment vehicles in which your money is being invested by the treasurer. At the end of the day, the buck stops with the treasurer. He or she is responsible for where that money goes, but you are limited in the investment vehicles in which you can put the money, and this policy lays those out. So there's no reason to be critical of prior policies. This is just, putting some more specificity into the existing policy. Some communities have very brief policies. They're 1 or 2 pages. Other ones have, you can put them in a binder. At the end of the day, they have to meet the state law, and this clearly does.
Thank you. No further questions.
Trustee Vosberg.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Thank you, Treasurer, for bringing this forward and updating it. In my former elected position, we annually would approve the list of depositories. So to me, that was just a way to keep current on the types of banks that are still open or new ones that are coming on board. I appreciate this effort. Thank you very much.
You're
Any
welcome.
further I'm sorry. Trustee DeMay.
To Treasurer Elliott, on your investment committee, where you have yourself, finance director, investment coordinator, deputy treasurer, and a member of the board of trustees, I take it this is just another set of eyes there, so you guys can have a good discussion regarding on some of these investments and things. Is that correct, ma'am?
Correct. Yes. It's an extra level of accountability, which I had saw used by some other municipalities, thought it was a great idea and added that in.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any further board comment?
Yeah, Mr. Supervisor.
Yes, Trustee Anderson.
Yeah, it's my concerns regarding this APO are I don't want to be construed as being an opposition or judgmental of any board member. You know, for anyone to do that would be manifest their subjectivity of the topic at hand. But major change of this procedure is to insert an elected official as the investment officers. Now, you mentioned statutorily, and council's also said it's not a necessity, but to insert an elected official in place of as the investment officer in place of the township coordinator, who happens to be a long-term and highly experienced employee of the township, funds and the proposals at hand. Two of the major changes appear on page 3, and Trustee Domink, you talked about one of them, and this committee, and I'm looking at, as an investment committee may meet as on-need basis with the sole purpose shall be to advise the treasurer on overall banking, depository, etc. The committee shall consist of the treasurer and 3 of the following members: finance director, investment coordinator, deputy treasurer, and one member of the township board of trustees. That'll replace the existing procedures we have. Something I noticed is this current proposal assigns one elected official, no matter whom he or she is, to overview of the township's treasury. And I've noticed that we've had 3 treasurers over the last 50 months. And if you go back in the treasurer's position, if there's a vulnerable position in this township, it seems like that's a revolving door. And no reflection on our current one, but putting this APO in position, you know, you might have a situation every 4 years, we'll have someone of a different persuasion or something overlooking it. No consistency of it all. I think our old position was quite adequate, and I think we ought to look at that if things have to be updated. And again, one of the biggest concerns I have is this 4-year rotation in that position that this board wants to put in charge of that procedure. That's the end of my concerns there. Thank you.
Go ahead, Treasurer or Treasurer.
Yes, I'd like to acknowledge that. Well, first of all, I'd ask Attorney Siebert to put clarity there. And as we've talked about, although you did have the investment coordinator was named in the other policy, he could clarify in the statutory duties of a treasurer. And although we did have the investment coordinator named previously, ultimately, what is the responsibility? I'm asking the question.
At the end of the day, the township treasurer is responsible for the investment of township funds. Quite frankly, I'm not aware of any townships that I represent where the treasurer does not invest the funds. You know, this isn't a situation where the treasurer can simply place the money wherever she so chooses. She's got a handful of investments that the Michigan Department of Treasury through the legislature has allocated, and she can't put them anywhere else. And those are all extremely secure, extremely conservative investments. I'll be willing to bet you that you couldn't put an investment of township funds anywhere where you couldn't get more than a couple % interest. It's because they're conservative. You can't just go out and throw them in a, you know, buy options and do a bunch of other investment vehicles. So the vehicles are limited. The statute imposes the ultimate duty on the treasurer. And I don't see any significant change in this policy with respect to responsibility. At the end of the day, if things go south, the treasurer is accountable for it. And therefore, it's the treasurer who's investing the money. You're simply approving a policy which outlines what the state law requires, and the depositories.
So the other policy bypassed the treasurer, although the treasurer is held responsible for it. And so state statute, if there was an issue, then the board would the board have to answer if there was some sort of issue that this employee, which is a union employee, was named. If there was a judgment and the treasurer didn't know about it or wasn't a part of that, would the treasurer or the board have an accountability with that?
Well, the board's not accountable. If you didn't have any investment policy, under state law, there's only certain places you can put the money even without a policy. The statute, however, requires that you have a policy that comes before the board and is board approved. And this is not really that intricate. It's simply an outline of where you're going to put the money. Again, it's dictated by state law. The vehicles are limited, but at the end of the day, the treasurer is the one that gets elected, whether it's every 4 years or that person continues on for multiple terms. That's what they get elected to do, just like a township supervisor in a charter township runs the day-to-day business of the township. And if it flips every 4 years, that prior supervisor may have implemented policies that the new supervisor is diametrically opposed to. That's the political process. For now, you've got a treasurer for the next 4 years is going to invest your money in the vehicles that the Department of Treasury allows and nothing more. She doesn't have really much latitude other than shifting money between those different accounts. And again, your auditor looks at this every year, and your auditor will give the same blessing to this policy that Plant Moran gives to the policy in prior years. This isn't that drastic a change.
The reference, the question about having the previous policy was the previous person that is long-term, but that policy was person specific. And if that person was not able to, if that position ever was divided, right now, that person's wearing a dual role. But if that position was ever divided by a treasurer at any point in time in the future, this policy, acknowledges that by saying, at least in the investment committee, at least 3 people. You see how I've named each of the separate roles, right? Putting all 4 roles out there, and then says at least 3 people within those 4 roles are there, so that as a way to protect and have those separate set of eyes. So I hope that gives some understanding, Trustee Anderson. It's just a matter of saying, looking into the future, if somebody retires or if they're out because of COVID, that there is a treasurer, there's a deputy treasurer, and then the investment coordinator role. If that role is ever given a separate set of duties, say if somebody were to retire and then somebody came in and they didn't have that experience. So this is kind of protecting to that. So this puts it in proper order. So that way the treasurer can still delegate those duties to that person if they're qualified. But if that person isn't available because they're out on vacation or out sick, or then we're gonna, then you're not committed to just having that person. Does that bring some clarity to it?
We're still on the Trustee Anderson. Do you have any follow-ups or continuations, Trustee Anderson?
I understand what you're saying, but reconfigure the existing policy. All right, I'll pass it. Any further comments?
Thank you. Any further comments for round 1? There's a couple that have not spoke yet in round 1. One quick one from me. This one does meet my larger objective of placing all important policies in the APO format, which can be found on the website under the administrative manuals section. This will be number 15 if adopted. That is a very important piece of it because immediately it is open to the public. It is easily amendable and right in front of our finger. So that piece of it is fabulous, and I love the committee annual committee portion of this, where you've got multiple eyes on it. I know a lot of treasurers probably wouldn't give up that, but I think it is the right solid best practice thing to do. So I am in support of this for those reasons and many more. Moving on to, I guess, round 2. Trustee Joseph, I saw your hand come up.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Just a quick question, and it's more for Attorney Siebert. we're routinely subjected to audits. The policy, as I think I understood you say, there's a list of financial institutions. This could not, we can't take the township tax monies and invest it in, online day trading or, stocks. And so there's only a limited number. And if I recall, we had, I don't know, maybe an hour's worth of presentation from a financial institution where the investments currently yield pennies based on the current economy and the inability to be aggressive. There is no ability, however it's defined, for wild speculations and investment strategies. These are very conservative investments that return, as we heard. And again, nothing wrong with the previous policy and this idea of an extra layer if it satisfies the board. And I hear Supervisor Acciavatti and I know his fondness for APOs and meetings and the fabulousness of it all. If you're comfortable with it, I'm fine. I guess what I was looking for, and I think Trustee Anderson, was this idea that out of a chaotic financial picture, and I just want the residents to know their money has not been invested in risky portfolios for the last 10 years because we didn't have this APO in place. I understand we are cleaning it up. We are identifying some roles, and that's all good. And in terms of an additional layer of accountability, as I read the APO, and I think Treasurer or Trustee Anderson pointed out, it is advisory. At the end of the day, as I understand it, Mr. Siebert, the buck stops with the treasurer no matter what it goes based on state law. Statutorily, this is a function of the treasurer. So, again, I don't want to belabor the APO. The old one was fine. This one cleans it up. That's great. And I just want people to know their money wasn't in peril because we lacked this APO for the last decade. It is approved and monitored by our auditors, and the money that we're talking about is really pennies in terms of the investment strategies that are available.
If you're addressing that to me, David, you are correct on all counts. The prior investment policy by the prior treasurer and his predecessor have all followed the same set of rules that this policy is following with respect to investment vehicles. There's a limited number of them, and I'll be willing to bet you that there's not 2% interest between any of them at the end of the day. And it's not a situation where you can go out and speculate. The reason that the Department of Treasury has said we're going to give you a very limited number of these is because this is public money, and they're not going to allow anybody, no matter how sophisticated you are, to invest in wild speculation. These are very, very conservative investments. And quite frankly, the average person that's watching this meeting probably would never put their money in because the interest rates are too low. These are savings accounts, essentially.
Yeah.
It's certificates of deposit, United States Treasury bills. I mean, these are back, they're almost guaranteed. They are guaranteed in many instances. That's why you get the very, very low rate of interest. So there's hardly anything speculative, and all of your prior policies have been compliant with state law and blessed by your auditing firm.
Thank you.
Any further board comments? Trustee, I'm sorry. Let me go. Kathy Elliott, it's your item to follow up on that one.
Yeah, thank you, Trustee Joseph. You are correct. So because of the limits of investment types by state statutes and in this current interest rate environment, the only opportunity to really benefit the township other than, we're struggling to get a 25 basis points or 0.25% of interest on our investments right now. And so my thinking is what we are doing in our office is we're trying to leverage our fund balances, and we are assessing what banks we have, and if there's a way to leverage the fund balances to lower fees. So at least maybe we can lower some fees, and it'll be equitable to the township in that way to make up for a zero interest rate environment.
Trustee Vosberg.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I just want to also point out that all along this entire discussion, it was never said that what had been done in the past was wrong or incorrect. This is just a change, a different way of saying something. And our money has always been in good hands with no matter who served in this office. End of discussion. Let's move on.
Any further comments from the board before I move to public comments?
Yeah, Mr. Supervisor.
Trustee Anderson.
Yeah, I want to thank council and also Mr. Joseph for and Ms. Bosberg for the remarks regarding the past performance of our township coordinator. I can understand the treasurer being placed in that position. I still kind of have a fear it's a rotating chair, but that's immaterial according to what council's remarks are. I think it was somewhat unfortunate, just bear with me, two references to that person being a union member. I don't believe that. I understand it might explain some, but I don't really think that was appropriate for this discussion. But I feel a little more comfortable about this APO than I had earlier. Thank you.
Thank you. Any public comments?
Yes, Mr. Supervisor, we have received 2 public comments on this agenda item.
Well, please read them.
The first is from Paul LaFontaine, 48055 Mailer Drive. MCL 41.76, the township treasurer shall receive and take charge of money belonging to the township or that has by law required to be paid into the township treasury and shall pay over and account for the money according to the order of the township board or the authorized officers of the township. 2, scope. The investment policy applies to all financial assets and related activity of the township. These assets are accounted for in the township's annual financial audit report and includes, not included. Currently, the Macomb County Drain Commission is holding approximately $640,000 in bond overpayments and $875,000 at 7% of the $12.5 million 15 mil sinkhole insurance claim, plus the cost of interest for the $875 over the next 22 years left on the bond payment term. Documented in the annual Plant and Moran audits, these funds are Chesterfield Township cash assets. These assets are held without documented authorization from the Township of Chesterfield. These funds are not in deposit in any of the funds listed in the APO and are at risk of being spent by Candace Miller at her pleasure, as she stated at a meeting with witnesses in attendance at the County Drain Commission. Why? Thank you, Paula Fata. Our second agenda item, or our second public comment on this agenda item is from Michelle Merriweather. And please hold on while we access that. And it is Supervisor Acciavatti and Treasurer Elliott. Thank you for clarifying the statutes. And that completes the public comments.
Any further board comments or follow up at this point from any board members? We have a motion by Trustee Vosberg, support by Clerk Barry to approve item 8D, which is APO 15-2021, and adopt resolution 2021-08, investment in depository designation policy. Clerk Barry, please call the roll.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Clerk Barry, aye. Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
No.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Acciavatti.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. Item 8E.
Item 8E is to approve a recommendation by Public Works to award the construction of the 23 Mile Road Water Main Project, Phase 1, Project 1012-2019, to the lowest responsible bidder, FDM Contracting, Inc., at a total cost of $1,545,097.00. Public Works is also recommending the approval of the total project cost of $2,047,518.00 from GL number 591-000-150,000.
So moved.
Motion by trustee Demink. Is there support? Motion by trustee Demink to approve item 8E.
Support.
Support by trustee Vosberg. Discussion. And a whole slew of folks on the line here. Kevin, Mitch, Stephen.
Do you mind if I start?
Yes.
Good evening. This is Assistant Director Johnson here. So on February 2nd, we received 8 bids, which was a lot more than we anticipated. We were very excited for the turnout. Obviously, as you can see, FDM came in as the lowest bidder at roughly $1.5 million. Once that bid came in, we did have a post-bid interview just to kind of sit down with FDM to make sure that all of the project costs and everything kind of aligned. There was nothing major or egregious that was missed, just to make sure that everything was in line. From the sheet where the bids were read, OHM did a calculation, found some minor mathematical errors. So while the bid tab may show a different number, this is the actual number, the 097. I think it was a difference of like $400, but it lowered it, not raised it. So it lowered it about $400, which is always a bonus. So again, this is going to be, the project is going to be along 23 Mile Road between Donner and Altman Road. It's roughly 6,270 feet of water main. We will be affecting the eastbound lane closest to the drive, so the southbound or the southernmost eastbound lane. The anticipated start date right now is estimated roughly, we're guessing middle of March. It'll take roughly 2 months to complete this project. So within that time frame, that eastbound lane will be closed down. So we'll have one lane going eastbound from Donner for roughly 2 months, starting roughly middle of March is our anticipation. So just make sure to warn the residents. We'll make sure to send some messages out on Notify Me and things of that to get them prepared for that traffic. A little bit of a congestion there, but in the end, it's going to be a huge benefit, help create redundancy in our water main system, and eliminate, it'll minimize a lot of impact on if we have a water main issue. It'll minimize how many customers we have to shut off for that project. And also keep in mind that while this project total is $2,047,000, we estimated it as $2,074,000. So the estimation was pretty close to the actual project cost, which we're very excited about. And I want to thank Steve Siklich, who was on the call as well from OHM, for helping us through this project. And finally, we do have 2 more easements we still have to collect. We're highly, we're confident we should at least get one of those by the time this project starts, but it should not slow us down. Thank you.
Questions for Director Johnson, Mr. O'Connor, and Mr. Siklich. We'll start with trustee Vosberg.
Thank you. Kevin, in the narrative you just gave, you mentioned the total project was, I thought you said 2,074,000. I think you meant 47, at least that's what our documents are showing.
Yeah, the total project is $2,047,000. Our estimate before the project came out was $2,074,000. So I was just saying that we were within the range, a pretty close range of it, but you are correct.
All right, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Trustee Joseph, I think I saw your hand come up.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Assistant Director Coddington, if you could take a look in our board packet, I'm on page 86 of 129. It is the itemized bid from the familiar.
The
Yeah,
bid, the
okay.
bid tab page,
I'm sorry.
the bid tab page, correct?
Yes, yeah, correct. So on page 86, category 1 is the underlined heading, and then we have item 2 under category 1 is one that always confounds me a bit on these projects. So you mentioned sending notices out to the residents because you will impact traffic at some point. You'll have equipment out there, and we run into the issue of traffic maintenance and control. The cost associated with this is an estimated quantity, and it is one lump sum. They range on this project from $85,000 to wait, sorry. So we have one bidder at 35,000, and it goes all the way up to $127,000. What does that look like, and what are we purchasing? Are we literally paying 127,000, or at least this one individual bidder, for the individuals out at the roadway that have the the sign, one says slow, the other says stop, and they control the traffic? How many hours will we utilize that, and how do we get to like 6 figures on traffic control?
That's a great question, and you already definitely brought up quite frequently. So with this particular one with DVM, it would be 85. So we're not going to actually have flaggers out there just sitting on the road every single day. You're going to have cones out there, blocking that lane for a specific period of time. If trucks need to come in and out, there may be gentlemen who have to help for a second to, direct traffic to get trucks in and out, to mobilize them and move them, in the proper location. But for the most part, it's getting signs out there, it's getting the traffic cones, getting all that stuff set up, everything properly set up based on MDOT standards. So that's basically what you're kind of encapsulating, is making sure that all the proper cones, signage, and you're talking, that's, it's a few miles of cones and such they're putting out there. So, and it's out there for 2 months.
So we buy $85,000 worth of cones and signs and people to direct traffic.
We don't buy them.
That's what we're getting for that.
They're rented, and they use them, and that's what's out there.
Okay, Trustee Anderson, you and I are in the wrong business. We need to be leasing cones and signs, because $85K is a lot of money. I know we have officers that if we brought them in on overtime, they could be out there directing traffic. I'm sure they'd satisfy the MDOT requirements, and we wouldn't spend $5K. But I realize we're talking about a $2 million budget. So if that's what it is, I guess that's what it is. But again, it went from 35,000 to 127,000 among the bidders, and I couldn't really put my arms around what exactly that service is. It just seems like when you get a project in the $2 million mark, it's important to keep an eye on the pennies. I guess this would be in the nominal fee when you look at all the work that's being done. But the 127K is a full-time officer with benefits and overtime. So I like to look at every bit of that bill. But okay, thank you.
And each one is different. I mean, each operation is different how they want to do their project. So I can't speak to the one who did 35. We spoke to DVM, who was the lowest bidder, but each one might operate differently. So I honestly can't speak to how they chose 35, because I'm not sure. We didn't actually speak to them in terms of why they chose 35. So.
Any further comments? I will make I'm going to reserve till we get around round one, and I'll make a comment on the traffic control item as well. That might be able to add some clarity. Any further comments from the board? Specifically related to traffic control. Director Johnson's correct. It's traffic control's bid as a lump sum to protect the owner. And that is standard policy for basically every Michigan Department of Transportation job. It's linked to a specification, and that specification is a catch-all to protect the owner for every time a load of pipe comes and a flagger's got to stop traffic. Every time, not only the barrels in the normal construction traffic, but every single piece that that goes into that. It's not a unit price. Every once in a while, you will see unit prices where a barrel is bid by the each. But generally, they're lump sums for projects like this. And that is to protect the owner from change orders, from having to pay for additional, a guy to stop traffic for 15 minutes for a load of dirt to come in. It catches the specification on this, and Steve, you might be able to expand on this as well, that details what is included in this item is pages long and very, very detailed, and comes from the Michigan Department of Transportation standard. And you're correct, David. It is confusing because you'll see contractors bid this at $1, and then some bid it at $1 million on jobs, because of the nature of it.
So just in terms of the lump sum, I'm sorry.
The total job, and
Yeah.
it is a lump sum.
So we don't have a lot of lump sum.
Say
I'm
again?
sorry, we don't have a lot of lump sum. Most of it is unit pricing, and you can see like consistencies in unit pricing. The only other lump sum, so you, on that same page, you see the remove and replace bumper blocks and pavement striping. I'm sure that there's MDOT standards and so forth associated with that. Those lump sums range from like, $3,500 to $5,000. Like that catches the entirety, and every bidder is within, a certain amount. I don't understand, because this traffic control keeps coming up, and on the bigger jobs, it gets really, you go from literally 35,000, where somebody, I assume, is meeting MDOT standards. They're not going to be a qualified bidder if they're doing something that isn't in compliance with those reams of documents and requirements. So how can, and I guess we don't negotiate once the bid is received. It's received in total, but the disparity in the it just to me it weakens the bid process, because if you can be $90,000 different than your competitor on a traffic control lump sum, and there's all this wiggle room, then is the dollar amount associated with another item actually deflated? It just seems like there's a lot of gamesmanship that goes into this traffic maintenance. And I understand what you're saying. It's the vendor that sets that, but I don't know how you follow an industry standard when one bid and do it for 35,000 and another says, nope, we need 4 times that amount for the same job. But again, I won't belabor it all night. It just seems strange to me.
I'm sorry, if you don't mind me asking, Trustee Joseph. So the 85,000 you're looking at DVM utilities, correct? Under the DVM.
Yes.
Okay, we're actually using FDM, and they're only 14,000.
No, my question is in the variance of those. That really is. It is like we have a $14,000, which was the bid that's awarded, but you have others that are 127. So 14,000 seems high to me. But how can somebody else bid that literally, almost 10 times the amount, and it still meets whatever industry standards are? It's just again, it's an anomaly in these bid packages, and some bid it. Like this, the awarding bidder is considerably lower than everybody else. But how can they afford to do that if other companies are saying, no, that expenditure is $127,000? It just makes me wonder about the rest of the bid. And are those the areas where we come back and we can guarantee that 10% of the contingency cost will be utilized, where you're in this job talking about another $200,000? Because we had scope changes and so forth. So it makes me question the legitimacy of the bid. If I can do the same job at 14, somebody else says cost 127,000. So my question was really in the disparity, not in the awarded bidder so much, but I appreciate that, Mr. Johnson.
Understood.
Well, I got to follow up on that. So we have been going around on this for 4 years, and I understand I don't even want to say confusion. 69 items on this job, on this project. It's a competitive bid unit price contract. So as a contractor, And as you look at some of these items, it's, you get paid by the foot or something. Curb removal. If you might remove 2 feet in a day, you get paid by the foot for water main, by the each for some items. There's 16 items that are broken out into a million different ways. The different contractors look at that in different ways. Each, if you look at it very closely, all 69 items, you'll see this large disparities and differences in the unit prices for specific items. And a lot of that is overhead. So every one of these contractors, what's not in here is overhead for the contractors. What's not in here is the soft costs, the permits, all the other things, and margin. So each contractor makes a decision on their own to determine which items or all the items eats the overhead, eats the margin, eats the risk, eats the whatever that turns out to. So from our standpoint, from an owner, you look for 2 things. One is the lowest responsible bid, which this is. A responsible bid is a contractor that is capable of building the project at the lowest total cost, which in this instance, we've got a very big discrepancy between the first bid, second, third, fourth, fifth, all the way up to 8. I'm very happy with the number. Second thing is if the bid is responsible and has any major just the differences or major changes in it, which this is not. One thing that can be guaranteed on this job, and it's one of the only ones between this and mobilization of the 69 items that won't change, are those 2 items. You will pay one lump sum for traffic control. You will not pay, I'm just picking another item, gate well hydrant removed, or water main 12-inch removed, 90 feet. That number might be 92 feet. It might be 89 feet, and you multiply it by the unit price. The traffic control will be paid as one. So it's one that we've been discussing for 4 years. It's the exact same method used for every heavy civil construction project that the state of Michigan puts out, and that every municipality I know of puts out to protect the owner. I'm very, very comfortable with it. I would be against moving to a unit price or an hourly basis for any type of this item. And I'm more than willing, like I said, to sit down and make and get you comfortable with the process. And if we maybe even other municipalities or we can head up to the state level and from them through the MDOT specification book. So any further comments on item 8E?
Yeah, Mr. Supervisor, just to follow up real quick. I appreciate you trying to make me comfortable with this. You don't have to waste your time with that. This is a $2 million expenditure. We could spend on other nights. We can spend an hour debating the cost of $1,000 copier, and if a $2 million expenditure causes discomfort, I'm sorry, but I'm going to continue to ask the questions because I'm not satisfied that when we have a $2 million project that is inclusive of a 10% contingency, and the only thing that happens with another 200K is that a contractor comes to the township and says, we got a scope change. The residents won't see that. They've already approved it. They've already approved the 10% contingency. So during the time when we're deliberating, if I'm going to look at a 6-figure versus a $14,000 expenditure on the front end, I'm going to ask those questions. You don't have to burden yourself with bringing my comfort level anywhere. Because I'm going to continue to ask those questions, and I don't need a tour to the state capitol for you to show me. I'm going to ask them. I asked them appropriately. I thought I asked them respectfully. It seems to require a rebuttal from you, and it's not necessary. We all get one vote, and I'm content to move on. I get it.
It didn't mean to be controversial, Trustee Joseph. Meant to be helpful.
Well, you referenced the last 4 years of your stewardship of my comfort level. I don't need that. So that's maybe where the offense was taken.
We've talked about this traffic control issue for 4 years on every unit price.
I'm sorry to bother you. It's a $200,000 contingency built into this job. So I'm going to ask that question.
Let me ask you this. How would you like to bid traffic control for our construction projects?
Well, I'm not on the committee, but if you're inviting me in, I would start negotiating with these vendors and asking them why there's this massive disparity. I wouldn't I wouldn't satisfy the taxpayer by just asserting my comfort level and my decades of knowledge. I would want to know and be able to explain that in a way that says, what are you going to do for this $14,000 or this $127,000? And it just seems like a fair question. So it's asked, it's answered typically with your brilliance and experience in this area and your comfort level, and that's supposed to be satisfactory to me. It's not. And so I asked the question. I'll continue to ask it. And if you want to invite me in on the process, I take you up on that offer, and I'll come in and ask the vendor during the opening of the bid process. I'd love to do that. If you invite me in, I'll do it.
You're always invited. I'm not really sure why it's heated, so let's just move on.
Fair enough.
I'll send you the standard specifications and everything. This is not meant to be heated, Trustee Joseph. It shouldn't be heated. You have an opinion, you can speak on it, and so can I without being attacked. So apologize.
Fair enough.
Offended you or felt like I was attacking you. That is not the intent. Any
I
further
appreciate that.
comments on item 8? Clerk Barry, has there been any public comments submitted on item 8E?
Mr. Supervisor, we do have 2 public comments submitted on this agenda item. And the first one is from Michelle Merriweather. And she states, I agree with Trustee Joseph. Could we as a community get more information regarding the breakdown of the $85,000 and the increase regarding he stated? And our second item you'll give me a moment to put that up. Is from Paul LaFontaine, 48055 Mallard Drive. 23-mile road water main. I understand that maintaining the township water system is important. I do not understand project items as a unit of one lump sum payment. Traffic maintenance and control, one lump sum, $14,000. Chesterfield is agreeing to pay the total amount of $14,000 for traffic control. There's only a need for traffic control for an 8-hour period or less. Trained traffic control employees are necessary to direct traffic to maintain a safe work environment for the workers. Construction, caution signs, and yellow barrels are risky substitutions. Chesterfield in the past has made total lump sum payments for minimal services rendered for traffic control past practice invoices. If a unit of measure had cost, example, quantity 200 feet of 6-inch pipe at $4 per linear foot, $800, and the actual quantity was 250 feet, the contractor was compensated. If this contract is still the practice, where is the fair dealings and disinterested conduct? Chesterfield will continue to get the short end, and if a unit of one lump sum payment items are continued, it will drain the enterprise fund and drive increased future and water and sewer rates. How does an elected official having a fiduciary duty to the residents of Chesterfield or an employee approve a contract or an expenditure that is financially compromises Chesterfield residents? Excerpt, State of Michigan Constitution. Elected officials have a fiduciary duty. It is the legal obligation of the highest degree to act in the best interest of their residents. Michigan's ethics code is reflected in our state's constitution's oath of office, which requires all township board members to swear under oath to faithfully discharge the duties of their office. This is a fiduciary duty owed to all members of the public. Chesterfield residents. Exactly like an agent for the corporation or a trustee of an estate, a township board member's fiduciary duty requires fair dealings and disinterested conduct. Thank you, Paul S. LaFontaine.
Any further public comment?
There are no further public comments on this agenda item.
Any further board comments? One request maybe from Mr. Siklich or Mr. Johnson or Mitch, maybe send a memo with the general specification, the supplementary specification on this traffic control issue. And Stephen, I see you unmuted yourself.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Supervisor, and good evening, members of the board. Yeah, certainly we can send over that specification if you want to look at that further, but one thing that is not factored into this cost is time. And some contractors do anticipate, completing a project quicker than maybe others. So staffing traffic control for, say, a 2-month period is going to be far cheaper than staffing traffic control for a 9-month period. So, each contractor is going to bid a little bit differently based on their own resources, their suppliers, what the costs are. But there are, defined requirements, and it's safety, and this is 24/7, that someone has to be out there making sure everything is set up, advanced warning devices are in place, traffic can maneuver safely, and some contractors, might, because of the duration of the project, need to spend more effort. Maybe their staff is smaller, the crew is smaller, the way they're bringing in materials is going to be different, so they price those items a little bit differently than each other. So in this case, FDM is at 14,000. We did look again at all the bids kind of against each other. I know the average cost for that item was around 30,000. So they are slightly under on that one. But systematically as a group, FDM did bid lower on unit prices throughout the project. So, if you end up using 100 feet more water main, you end up using 100 square yards more pavement, no matter who the contractor is, you're going to pay a dollar amount per unit that you use. So in this case with FDM, that cost to the township would be lower, irrespective of quantities used relative to other bidders. But I would also note that there's always an option if you don't like pricing from one bidder, you go to the next bidder. In this case, it's a $230,000 difference. So if you don't like FDM, you can go to Deponio and pay $230,000 more to use their bid. That's kind of what we vetted, the township staff and us and the contractor during that pre-award meeting to kind of define some of the challenges of the project, some of the variabilities of the items within the project, and the costs that FDM appropriated for those items, to kind of vet out that process with them before making the award recommendation. So we did go through that exercise to make sure that they were comfortable with staffing what they needed to staff in order to complete the project and in their timeline. So I know these are great questions. They're always variable on all the projects that we see, and a lot of it just has to do with like was mentioned earlier, overhead costs, but also time. If you plan to complete something quicker than somebody else, your labor costs are going to be far lower. So if there are any other questions, feel free to ask, but I just thought I'd summarize maybe that little piece.
Thank you. Any further comments on the board? Any further public comments? Don't believe there's, I think Cindy already said that, and we're all done with those. We have a motion by trustee Demink, support by trustee Vosberg to approve item 8E as submitted. Clerk Barry, please call the roll.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Acciavatti.
Aye.
Clerk Barry, aye.
Motion passes. Thank you to the DPW team and
Thank you.
item 7F.
Item 7F is to approve a recommendation by Public Works to incorporate Sedaru 811 into our existing Sedaru Enterprise software platform at a total cost of $10,000 from GL number 591-441-801000.
Do I have a motion?
So move.
Motion by trustee Anderson. Is there support?
Support, Joseph.
Support by trustee Joseph. Discussion.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'll make a brief comment. So this is, so as the board knows, we already use Sedaru for our asset management as our program. This is just kind of another great portion that they just come out with. Essentially right now, when we do a mistig, we have our tablet, we go in the field, we do have it digitally to some capacity. What we're missing is the ability to, right now, we actually still print out the mistigs, we take the paper in the field, we write our notes on the paper, and we store it in a box. That box gets sent over to police and then stored in long-term storage. And if we ever need to pull history, there's the ability to pull it from the MISDIG website, but the notes and other things are in our box that we got to spend hours looking for this information. With this new MISDIG response, we have the ability of putting digital comments, attaching photos now, which we've never done before. And then being able to, the system also allows us to, when MISDIGs come out, to, it puts red flags in our township and we can literally see where they're at and properly drive to even be more efficient when we're attacking these MISDIGs versus just, not that we drive randomly, we do our best to be as efficient as possible. But MISDIGs are coming in all the time, every day. Like I said, we've got 3,500 in a year, so it's quite a bit. So it's going to help us with that. Along with this, we're going to have, with that software or the hardware components you guys we bought a few months ago, is going to be locating our GIS with this simultaneously while doing all this stuff. So it's going to be a great tool to help us categorize, log, and keep track of all the tickets that we have going on, as well as this cost will also include 3 hours of training to make sure for our employees so they know how to use this system, and then have some brief training on our existing system just to make sure we can get a refresher of how to use that system. And there's also some post rollout support, 4 hours. So if there's any issues we come across, we have time to, fix and mitigate any minor errors in the system. But looks like it'll be a great platform. We're excited about it, and it'll make ourselves even more digitally capable in the field.
Discussion. Any comments from the public, Clerk Berry?
There are no public comments on this agenda item.
Seeing no further board comments or public comments, we have a motion by Trustee Anderson, support by Trustee Joseph to approve item 8F as submitted. Please call the roll.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Trustee Busberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Acciavatti.
Aye.
Clerk Berry. Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Item 8G.
Item 8G is to approve a recommendation from the Department of Public Safety to purchase a 2020 Ford utility truck from LaFontaine Ford of Birch Run, Michigan in the amount of $45,048.00 from GL number 205-340-986-000.
So moved. Joseph?
Motion by Trustee Joseph,
Or Vosberg.
support by Trustee Vosberg. Discussion, and Director Kirsten and his team is here.
Yes, we are. Thank you very much. This vehicle is going to replace an existing 2011 Ford Expedition that is in our fleet. This service type utility vehicle that we're replacing it with will allow us to haul and place additional equipment for the firefighters in their daily duties. This replacement vehicle encompasses a lot of capabilities within the fire service, the size, the maintenance. Obviously, we need a larger vehicle to tow. We have multiple towing trailers that are utilized in the fire service. This vehicle is purchased from a state of Michigan bid fleet pricing system, and it was within our capital budget. We did plan it, and it is within our budget this year.
Questions for Director Kirsten? Trustee Vosberg.
Thank you. Sounds like this is, you're using it more for the heavy duty hauling, things like that. Will this have the regular lighting and sirens and things that other fire equipment has?
Yes, it will. It will be a normal emergency response vehicle.
Okay, does that have, just curious, does that have the safety things like for high speed and turning whatever things they would do that need to do in the situations they are in?
It's not, you're asking if it's an emergency response vehicle. They are, but we don't, it's not going to be used at a high speed all the time. Is it going to respond to emergency calls? Yes. It's really the matter and style of we don't exceed the speed limit or drive recklessly to push the limits of the vehicle. per se.
Great, thank you.
And also follow up, yes, it will have emergency lighting equipment on it, if I didn't answer that.
Any further comments from the board? Trustee
Just a-
Joseph.
Yeah, just a quick one, Supervisor Acciavatti. Director Kirsten, this is, our fire department has moved into, we have a lot of people that are, trained with very specific rescue, things like confined space, cave-ins. You have in the, arsenal, small trailers that have equipment for, say, a trench rescue or even a small watercraft, things like that. Anything that requires something to be towed to the scene. And so the outfitting of this vehicle really just allows you to get there quickly, but you're not planning to chase down bad guys in this thing, or it doesn't have the same equipment that Trustee Vosberg was referencing. This is more for getting specific equipment that needs to be towed to a scene.
Yeah, that's correct. And it's more of an equipment vehicle, as you stated. In today's world, there's our technical side. It requires a lot of equipment, and this vehicle allows for that capacity of additional equipment. One of the biggest things that we have with this SUV type vehicle that we utilize currently is all that vehicle is within the driver's compartment area of that vehicle. This removes it from that driver's compartment vehicle and it puts it in the service body area. With contamination, with exposure, all those things, we want to remove them from the driver's operational area. And again, this is a service utility truck.
Great.
Any further comments from the board? Any public comments, Clerk Berry?
There are no public comments on this agenda item.
We have a motion by Trustee Joseph, support by Trustee Vosberg to approve item 8G as submitted. Clerk Berry, please call the roll.
Trustee Joseph,
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg,
Aye.
Trustee Anderson,
Aye.
Trustee Demink,
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott,
Aye.
Supervisor Acciavatti,
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Motion passes. Item 8H.
Item 8H is to approve a recommendation from the Department of Public Safety to lease 2 Chevrolet Tahoe LS models from Enterprise in the amount of $39,998.40 over 2 years from GL number 205301986 and 205340986.
Do I
So
have a
moved.
motion by Trustee Joseph,
Support.
support by Clerk Berry. Discussion.
Yeah, Mr. Supervisor, if I may.
Yes.
Just like to commend the Public Safety Department. I think the board would take note that their next agenda item involves 5 vehicles, and to not have an agenda item that has 7 vehicles is purposeful and intentional, because the 2 vehicles that we're asking for in this agenda item are not typical of how we handle vehicle in our fleet. This is a lease, and these vehicles, as I understand it, Trustee Anderson and I were asking a lot of questions about this. This is a deviation from the normal practice, which is to purchase these vehicles. And the brilliance in this is we know that the depreciation of these vehicles, when we buy them, we can take advantage of a much lower, the useful life of the vehicle, a much lower per mile expenditure. These are designed to be administrative vehicles, so these are not vehicles that will be consumed with extremely high mileages during the course of their utilization in the Public Safety Department. This is interestingly enough, during a conversation with best practices, I would have to say one of the biggest experts that was in the township recently, and that comes none other than one of our assessors with that accreditation process, who is employed in a department in another part of the state. This is something that forward-thinking departments are getting ahead of, and they are taking advantage when the market affords it to lease the vehicles that do not require a massive mileage utilization. So this is again, it's in the grand scheme of things, It's not a 6 or 7 figure purchase like some of the other things we've had tonight, but it's every bit as genius, and it is a testament to watching the pennies and the dollars kind of take care of themselves. This is a very good purchase, and again, I just had to point out why it is, because it is a deviation from our normal practice. This lease is a great idea, and it's what forward-thinking departments are doing. So hats off to Director Kirsten and his team for taking advantage of the savings.
Any further, Clerk Barry?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I was very excited to support Trustee Joseph on this item in the Public Safety Department. For those of you who know my background, you know that I was in fleet service maintenance for over a decade in our family business. And, even now, I have a family member who is serving in a fleet management capacity for a major county here in Michigan. And so this is one of the very creative, very logical options that municipal fleets have had available to them. And I'd like to commend the Public Safety Director and his team for bringing forward this type of creativity, this type of, people tend to be kind of afraid of doing things that they have not done and doing things differently. But yet in this case, I know from my background that leasing in certain instances for municipal vehicles makes perfect sense. And not only the depreciation method that Trustee Joseph mentioned, but just the utilization of the vehicle. And what it takes is it takes a little bit of a deeper dive into your fleet in order to understand when leasing makes sense. And I think that this is exactly a perfect example of when to do things perhaps in a little bit of an unorthodox manner. But at the end of the day, we're going to receive excellent service from the vehicle, and we're going to pay a lot less money for it. So kudos to Director Kirsten and his staff for taking that deep dive and doing something that I'm excited to support. Thank you.
Any further comments on the board? Any comments on Director Kirsten?
Mr. Supervisor, yes, and thank you, Trustee Joseph and Clerk Barry, for your comments. Yeah, this is something we've been looking at for some time, just to fill in a lot of the blanks that you've clearly already stated. We've been looking at this and evaluating it and trying to make sense of it in ourselves and how we apply it here. And as Clerk Barry stated, this does fit a particular model within our police department and within our fleet. The cost savings alone, I think, is evident within the lease. I've supplied a supplemental document today. And just so everybody knows, I have our budget analyst, Gary Herbst, in the room. I have the fire chief and also Captain McNair again, who manages our fleet. And we've kicked this around for some time. We've had some internal analytics done. We've priced it out with other vendors, and the cost savings alone right off the top, if this works out for us and we see a positive impact moving forward, I would like to expand this further into the police department and also into the fire department in future years to come, as long as it fits that economical model that we're trying to achieve here.
Any further comments from the board? Motion by Trustee Joseph, support by Clerk Barry, to approve item 8H as submitted. Clerk Barry, please call the roll.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Clerk Barry, aye. Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Acciavatti.
Aye. Motion passes. Item 8I.
Item 8I is to approve a recommendation from the Department of Public Safety to purchase 5 vehicles from Signature Ford in the amount of $285,600 from GL number 205-301-986-000.
So moved. Domingue.
Motion by Trustee Mink,
Support Vosberg.
support by Trustee Vosberg. Discussion.
Thank you very much again. This is our patrol fleet purchase. This is our annual purchase we present to you. This is for 5 patrol vehicles that will replace our some of the existing. As you know, due to COVID in the auto industry, we had late deliveries of our last year. In fact, we just got the final ones in within the last 28 days. So our expectation is if you approve this tonight, we'll place the order. We probably won't take delivery of these cars until late summer, early fall as replacement vehicles for our fleet.
Any comments from the board? Any comments from the public, Clerk Berry?
No, Mr. Supervisor, we have no public comments submitted on this agenda item.
Seeing no further board discussion, we have a motion by trustee Demink, support by trustee Vosberg to approve item 8I as submitted. Clerk Berry, please call the roll.
Trustee Demink,
Aye.
trustee Vosberg,
Aye.
trustee Joseph, trustee Joseph,
Muted.
Yeah, sorry,
Muted.
having a little technical difficulty here. Aye.
trustee Anderson,
Aye.
treasurer Elliott,
Aye.
supervisor Acciavatti,
Aye.
clerk Berry, aye.
Motion passes. Item 8. Thank you, Director Kirsten. Item 8. Oh, I guess you're still here. Item 8J.
Item 8J is to approve a recommendation by Public Safety to purchase 15 AEDs and 1 training unit from Second Change Medical Equipment for $14,720 from GL number 205-340-977-000.
Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Clerk Berry. Is there support?
Or,
Support by trustee Vosberg. Discussion?
Again, this is a request to purchase. This was, again, built into our budget and our capital plan. I'm going to defer to Chief Miller to make the presentation on the reason and supporting verbalizing documents, so he'll be right here.
Well, welcome, Chief.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much. As the director pointed out, this is a budgeted project that we're doing. The equipment that we have in place all over the township, onboard police vehicles, fire vehicles, in the township offices, at the DPW building, they've reached their end of life. So it's time to upgrade that equipment with this system. We got a very competitive bid back. We got a tremendous price on them. Each of the units also comes with a 5-year guarantee. We're very pleased with the outcome that came with this. So this will be the hardware that'll be in place to help protect our employees, our visitors, and the citizens and businesses in Chesterfield. And at the same time, the fire department will continue to oversee this equipment and continue to do training with our personnel and our employees within the township and how to use them to minimize the risk from a sudden cardiac death.
Questions for the chief or Director Kirsten? Any comments from the public? Clerk Berry.
There are no comments from the public on this agenda item.
Seeing no further board discussion, we have a motion by Clerk Berry, support by trustee Vosberg to approve item 8J as submitted. Clerk Berry, please call the roll.
Clerk Berry, aye. Trustee Vosberg,
aye.
trustee Anderson,
Aye.
trustee Joseph,
Aye.
trustee Demink,
Aye.
treasurer Elliott,
Aye.
supervisor Acciavatti.
Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Item 9 is addendum. There's no addendum on tonight's agenda. We're going to skip to item 12 is the closed session. Item 12A.
Item 12A is closed session to consult with township attorney regarding trial or settlement strategy in connection with pending litigation in the matter of PI Tower Development LLC versus Charter Township of Chesterfield, U.S. District Court docket number CV 12280 MFL pursuant to Section 8E of the Open Meetings Act.
Do we have a motion to go into closed session?
Motion to go into closed session.
Motion by
Support.
trustee Berry, support by trustee Joseph to go into closed session. Clerk Berry, please call the roll.
Clerk Barry, aye. Trustee Joseph,
Aye.
Trustee Anderson,
Aye.
Trustee Demink,
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg,
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott,
Aye.
Supervisor Betty.
Aye. Motion passes. We are in closed session at 8:50 PM. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, do we have a motion to re-enter open session?
So moved.
Motion to re-enter open session.
Motion by trustee Demink, I believe that was, and support by clerk Barry.
Wasn't me.
I think it's trustee Joseph.
Okay, motion by trustee Joseph, support by trustee, or clerk Barry to re-enter open session. Clerk Barry, please.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Clerk Barry, aye. Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Acciavatti.
Aye. We are back in open session at 9:24 PM.
Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to make a motion coming out of closed session.
Trustee Joseph.
I'd like to direct the township supervisor to execute the McGraw-Morris PC engagement letter as discussed in closed session.
Motion by trustee Joseph to direct the township supervisor to execute the McGraw-Morris PC engagement letter as discussed in closed session. Is there support?
Support. Support.
Support by trustee Vosberg, motion by trustee Joseph. Discussion. Somebody's got to be muted, I think. I'm not sure where the noise is coming from. We have a motion by trustee Joseph, support by trustee Vosberg to direct the township supervisor to execute the McGraw-Morris PC engagement letter as discussed in closed session. Clerk Barry, please call the roll.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Acciavatti.
Aye.
Clerk Barry, aye.
Motion passes. Going backward on the agenda to item number 10, which is public comments. Clerk Barry, has there been any public comments submitted? And if there are, please read them into the record.
Yes, Mr. Supervisor, we have some public comments submitted for this evening's meeting. And just give me a moment to pull those up. Okay. Our first public comment is from Paul LaFontaine, 48055 Mallard Drive. Thank you, Trustee Joseph. Chesterfield Township's elected officials have a fiduciary duty. It is the legal obligation of the highest degree for Supervisor Acciavatti, Clerk Barry, Treasurer Elliott, Trustees Anderson, Demink, Joseph, and Vosberg to act in the best interest of the residents of Chesterfield Township. Michigan Ethics Code is reflected in our state's constitution's oath of office, which requires all township board members to swear under oath to faithfully discharge the duties of their office. This is a fiduciary duty owed to all members of the public, Chesterfield residents.
Is that it?
Excuse me. No, we have some technical difficulties here. One moment, please. Exactly like an agent for a corporation or a trustee of an estate, a township board member's fiduciary duty requires fair dealings and disinterested conduct. The Tuesday, February 9th, 2021 Township Board Meeting Agenda Item D, approve a recommendation by Public Works to move forward with the planning stage of the 2021 New Haven Water Main Project by utilizing the services of Anderson, Eckstein and Westrick, Inc., AEW, at an estimated design cost of $13,700. Trustee Joseph fulfilled his fiduciary duty, his commitment to the Chesterfield residents that elected him and questioned why AEW. Anderson, Eckstein, and Westrick had a track record of continuous monthly invoices in years 2013, 2014, 2015, and 2016 for repetitive studies, floodplain, water main planning, sanitary planning, GSI sanitary, GSI water, NP, DES, stormwater, CTV, in cleaning, general supervisor, and the Chesterfield water and sewer rate study invoices totaled hundreds of thousands of dollars annually. Miraculously, something changed in 2017. The monthly invoicing was extremely diminished. The 2015 water and sewer rate study was not the only AEW failure Chesterfield residents paid for and would have had the largest impact on residential, commercial, and industrial users with a crippling effect on future development and growth. Resident involvement at the Water and Sewer Rate Advisory Board with their diligence and simple numbers crunching saved Chesterfield residents and investors from a 27% rate increase. AEW rate study invoices totaled $9,600 and a follow-up invoice for $700 to attend a water rate advisory board meeting that only lasted 1 hour and 12 minutes, trying to justify the accuracy of the study. Supervisor Acciavatti cleared the path, inviting the Fox AEW back into the henhouse. He appointed engineering QBS members, all of his yes people, to select AEW, amended the purchasing policy, adding heavy civil construction projects, and increased the limit to $20,000, sidestepping board approval before any damage is done. AEW invoices, when questioned, are paid based on Acciavatti's extreme confidence, not audit-worthy supporting documentation. Breach of duty includes the publication of any false statement, checks, drafts, warrants, or vouchers relating to the finances of the township. MCL 750.489. Chesterfield residents, ask yourself, is Acciavatti a majority of the Chesterfield Township Board fulfilling their fiduciary duty? Thank you, Trustee Joseph, for vetting the single sourcing purchase of a lawnmower, questioning why. AEW at the February 9th board meeting fulfilling your fiduciary duty as an elected official. I'm confident there was displeasure voiced by Supervisor Acciavatti. Paul S. LaFontaine. We also have an additional submittal that is from Elizabeth Madsen, Chesterfield Township Library. A point of clarification, the Chesterfield Township Library's current millage rate is 0.615. For a resident with a median household value of $200,000, the cost of the current millage is about 17 cents per day for public library services. The library board has made no decision on the amount of a millage to construct and operate a new public library, nor has the length of that millage been decided. Thank you. That completes our public comments that have been submitted under public comment section of the agenda, Mr. Supervisor.
With no further public comments being submitted, we'll move on to item number 11, board comment. Trustee Joseph.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. First, just apologize to Ms. Madsen if I misrepresented. I will do a better job in the future. I intentionally, at the conclusion of that meeting, thought that I had clarified the position, but I guess my notes should be a little more, little tighter. Again, the meetings are public, and so I didn't feel I was sharing anything that wasn't a part of the board liaison responsibilities. But again, I will make sure I clarify that before. Again, as the liaison, what I try to do is bring back information specifically from those meetings directly to the board. And in the previous 2 months, what I've done is just sort of reiterated my talking points, if you will, or my report to the board. So not sure how that one slipped, but I will make sure that I get doubly clarified before our next meeting in March. The other comment that I wanted to make on a few things that Treasurer LaFontaine pointed out, I share a number of the concerns. In the closing of that comment, I wrote down that there was that Treasurer LaFontaine was confident that there was displeasure voiced by the supervisor, and I want to be clear. I heard no displeasure about anything. I believe that as we move forward, there's an opportunity to speak on issues freely, even with a little bit of disagreement tonight. I feel that we've maintained that relationship, and I have heard nothing in the way of displeasure from the supervisor. Continue to look for areas that we agree, and when we don't, we'll try to manage those as best we can. I felt comfortable during before we were elected, when we were talking about possible outcomes, and should we find ourselves on this board together, we I think agreed that we had a lot of room to do a better job in how we negotiate things and bring some level of decorum that had been absent for many years during our previous time together. So I heard nothing in the way of any displeasure regarding any of the comments that I made. So I'm comfortable with how things are going. As it relates to some of the votes tonight, just wanted to quickly point out the APO that was discussed very early on with the issue involving the treasurer's office. I think it was thoroughly discussed, but I did feel slightly, I think Trustee Anderson pointed it out, the individual that was referenced as a union employee kind of rubbed me the wrong way as well. That individual has been around for decades, serving multiple administrations, political parties of all walks, independents, if you will, Republicans, Democrats, and I always felt like we were in the know as it related to any issues involving investments, and I never really felt any concern about any recklessness or concerns arising from the people's money as it relates to loosely worded policies or procedures. So I guess maybe I misread the presentation as it was laid out. It followed a very lengthy presentation that we received at the last recent board meeting about how investments are handled, and then seemed to suggest that there was, a new, more appropriate, proper, whatever adjective you want to use, when simply all that needed to be done was, as Trustee Vosberg pointed out, some maybe annual cleaning up of institutions that were no longer viable options that appeared on a list and so forth. I was comforted to hear our township attorney clarify emphatically that we have we have and have not had any reckless or inappropriate investments or policies that violated state requirements, that we have routinely been in compliance and received glowing feedback from our township assessors over the past 10 years, which would be two previous administrations or tenures in the treasurer's office. So I was happy to hear that. Lastly, Mr. Supervisor, I know it's an issue that you probably receive tons of phone calls on, as do other board members, and it happens when we have a significant snow event in the township, and the ability to get snow removal equipment out into residential neighborhoods in particular. And I know that over the years, we've always assured residents that county roads are exactly that. They're county roads, and that when the township is called upon by the county to lend assistance with snow removal, that we always execute that to the best of our ability. But there's an anomaly that seems to be occurring, and it has to do with residents in particular that live on courts. They routinely get neglected in terms of the absolute last place on the list for snow removal. And if you're maybe 6 or 7 houses at the end of a court, and some of these vehicles are literally just stuck for days. They're not getting out with that vehicle in a court, and they're consistently the last. I heard from several residents, not just residents that live on the same court that got together and called, but residents in different parts of the township, Flamingo and Rex Court in particular, that feel like they are constantly neglected when it comes to snow removal, and they're patient. They don't expect that their court is going to be plowed on day one, but 4 days into a snow event, and they're now facing the next snow event is, I think, too much. And I think it's reasonable to ask for some help from the township on making their roads, their courts, passable. So the effort that we can put in, I don't know what that is, but I would like to talk to you, Mr. Supervisor, and see if we can do something for them. And I am proud of the Public Works employees, because I know that they work very, very long hours in these snow events for days on end, trying to to help residents. I know that it's not an intentional issue, and it's really just a matter of number of hours in a day. So if we could strategize on how we get some relief to these residents on courts, I'd really appreciate that. And thank the board for some constructive discussions tonight.
Trustee Anderson.
I feel like he's saying a lot of great
Yeah,
things.
I do too.
but-
Trustee Anderson, you're muted if you can hear us. We're going to come back to you.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I wasn't starting my own meeting there. I apologize. Okay. I just want to mention, irregardless of the statutory ramifications of PO 15/2021, I'd like to commend Mrs. Clark on her dedication, knowledge, and expertise as it relates to our township's financial processes throughout the years. And I would hope that she remains an integral part of that endeavor. Thank you and good night.
Trustee Demink.
No comment tonight. Thank you and good night.
Trustee Vosberg.
Thank you. Two things. First one is, I'm always encouraged when we have new people on a committee, on a board, anything, that people bring something new. And I just appreciate some of the new things that are being brought to the township leadership through this board and the new member. The other one is accolades to township employee who was out plowing snow at some of the township sites. It was a pump station. Saw somebody trying to get at kind of a snow enclosed encapsulated vehicle and said, "Here, let me help you." And in one sweep with the blade was able to help the person open up a pathway so the person could get through. And the person said to me, he did in 10 seconds what it would have taken me a half hour to do. So he was very grateful. And I was glad to hear that one of our employees saw that need and filled it in a relatively effortless way. Thank you.
Clerk Berry.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank the board for their support of the two items that we had on the agenda from the Election Commission. These changes will allow us to much better facilitate absentee processing of absentee ballots and absentee ballot counting on election nights this year. Thank you.
Treasurer Elliott.
Thank you. I want to thank the board for passing the APO tonight. I do want to kind of show you guys. So this is something that's been referred to as a cookbook. I don't know if you can see it. It's from the Michigan Township Association. It's the authorities and responsibilities of the Michigan Townships. I believe at the beginning of the year, every one of the elected officials was given that. I'm going to give you a couple of page numbers, page 111 of that book, and also page 217, and those talk about the statutory duties of every elected official. It talks about the supervisors, treasurers, clerks, and trustees' statutory duties. The statutory duty of a treasurer is collects real and personal property taxes, keeps an account of township receipts, revenues, and expenditures, prepares financial reports, issues township checks, receives and deposits township revenues and payments in approved depositories, invests township funds in approved investment vehicles, maintains records of treasurer's office, collects delinquent personal property tax, responsible for jeopardy assessments and collecting personal property tax, collects mobile home specific tax, must appoint a deputy, and must post a surety bond. I thank you, Mr. Anderson, for your acknowledgement of my deputy and the work that she's done for the 42 years that she's been here. She's done a fantastic job. And this APO will provide her so that the entire responsibility doesn't fall on her, but is something that actually is a statutory duty of the treasurer that can delegate specific parts of that to her and relieve her of the full burden. And it is, the policy has been written to no longer be person specific because as I had said, this is somebody who is been with the township for 42 years and in a long-term looking position. We're able to say this is a policy that is encompassing, it's in line, it's no longer person specific. It is identical to policies that are from GFOA, Michigan Township Association, and the best practices that you'll see in neighboring municipalities. And so I want to thank you for that support. Also, Michelle Merriweather had made a comment earlier today about the confusing way that we're getting. We went through one of the items on the agenda, and Michelle, you're welcome to call me and we can go over that. I'll print up, you can click on there, we can print up and I'll go through some of that with you. I do believe there's some confusion by Mr. LaFontaine. I also believe there's confusion, continual confusion, and I apologize for that in the use of titles. And Mr. LaFontaine is our former treasurer and the current treasurer, and I apologize to any residents who have been confused about that use. And also, I'm going to ask Mr. Acciavatti, could you kind of discuss the history of AEW that maybe was discussed at the prior meeting? I had never heard that before, and when I had asked questions about it, there was nobody in the township that had heard this particular story that Mr. Joseph shared, and also the mistake of the use of sole source in the last agenda. I'm not entirely sure that was not used on a lawnmower, but I believe that was used on a different item that Mr. LaFontaine refers to. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the board. A long meeting, a lot of business. Overall, a very productive, respectful meeting. Specifically, I'd like to thank Treasurer Elliott for putting the depository investment into an APO. Clerk Barry and Ms. Gurmaz for their work on elections on the item that were passed tonight. The entire DPW team, public safety team, along with Director Sonnenberg and Ms. Claycomb on the CDBG grant item. Snow, Trustee Joseph, I'd love to troubleshoot on that. There are some complications. We cannot, it's not that we will not, we cannot plow public or private roads without an agreement. There's legal ramifications. There's all sorts of issues there. We do not own those roads. If they request us to, then that's a different situation. I do think there's some opportunity though. Now the de minimis helping somebody when you're going by is way different than having an arrangement without the owner, which would either be the county or a private road, having an agreement with them. But I am all ears, and the county is, they got their hands full on a number of levels, and I will be, and I know I committed to it a month ago to have a road presentation because there are some disturbing things and some exciting things coming up for the 2021 and beyond road season. We do give them those difficult ones in the courts and the ones that are to try to put them on a hot list. And they actually did respond to as many of those as they could in our community. But I look forward to working with you on that. Treasurer Elliott, that's going to be a really long conversation, but AEW or none of our service vendors are sole source vendors. So that is not something that happens here. If there is a sole source vendor, single source vendor, which there is in some specialty items, some with PD, some software, those are described very clearly at time of approval. But none of our service vendors are single source. These are competitively bid professional service consultants. We have 3 of them. OHM, who was here tonight, AEW and Spalding D. Decker are our engineers. I do expect this Zoom platform to be used through March. And if that changes, we'll let you know at the next meeting. Couple public comments. Thank you to Ms. Merriweather for participating, Ms. Madsen as well, and Mr. LaFada. If one thing he is relentless with his bullying of me with never-ending misinformation and half information. So I thank him for participating and being relentless. We do have a special board meeting next Wednesday, March the 3rd at 6 p.m. That will be a joint meeting with us and Planning Commission. With that, our next regular scheduled meeting is March 7th at 7 p.m. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion
Second.
by Trustee Mink, support by Clerk Barry to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by saying nay. We are adjourned at 9:49 p.m.
Good night.